So my rule of thumb is that the first customer that comes to you that is willing to spend time with you to improve the product to 100%, you should just go all in and make sure that it goes to 100% for that one first customer. And after that, you can probably stop listening to the second and third customer.
So I'm Akira, and I'm a foreign engineer and entrepreneur in Singapore. And my previous company is one of the NUS startup called Burple, and which is your first investment company in Singapore, I believe.
Yes.
So then I was there as a VP of engineering. So that's why I know you, and I knew him. And then after that, in 2017, so I started a drone company with my co-founder and focusing on drone software for easy and safe drone operation. So it's called Red Dot Drone. Yes. Would you like to introduce your
Okay,
self?
sure. Akira, thanks for the background. You obviously we know each other for more than 10 years by now with the investment into Burple back in 2012. So it's been a while.
Yes.
And to me, it's always good to see that regardless of how a startup does, that the employees of the startup or the core founding team and so on are able to move on and create their own startups. So that's a healthy growth of pipeline of talent. And I think NUS has done a very good job in doing so, where the talent that comes out from startups are continued to be supported. So I'm James Tan, managing partner at Quest Ventures. We invest in startups at the early stage across Southeast Asia and now also Central Asia. In basically all sectors except for biotech and medical tech or medtech. Just because I don't have a PhD or doctorate behind my name, and it's very difficult for me to understand the technologies that are coming through. And even then, without those two major sectors, I think we are also now increasingly having a very much more difficult time understanding the deep tech industry, if you may, because there are so many interesting business models and technologies being created.
Okay, that's interesting. I think before having that question regarding deep tech, I'm just curious, like the reason why the next market is for Quest VC is Central Asia. May I know the reason why the VC is investing in Central Asia?
So for us, it's not the next big market. We are already in it. We are already investing into Central Asia. As early stage VCs, we are always looking out for new sectors, for example, a certain part of deep tech, or even new geographies to invest into, where we see that the potential for outsized returns can be delivered in those sectors or those geographies within the foreseeable future. And for us, that generally means 5, 10, 15 years kind of timeline. And we see that Central Asia, with its demographics, with the kind of talent that we are seeing in STEM, with the kind of talent that we are seeing in finance, which is critical for VC and PE industries, and the kind of regulations that are being loosened or tightened to help different sectors grow, are now positioning Central Asia as a very good hub for VCs like ourselves, focus on the early stage, focus on early emerging new geographies and sectors to look into.
Okay, I see. Because I have been to Central Asia personally for my trip, so I know the countries. But do you have like a specific countries or like, for example, Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan you are investing?
Okay. So you mentioned the two very countries that we have made investments into. So I would say, just like someone who's based in Europe will look at us as in just Southeast Asia. Within Southeast Asia, we all know, and you would know, since you've been here for so many years, that it's not just Southeast Asia. There's Singapore, which is very different from Malaysia, which is very different from Thailand, and so on and so forth. So in Central Asia, also the same. There are definitely differences between the pace of development in tech and in finance for the countries in there. And so Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, by far for us right now, are where we make our investments into. And between these two countries, by far, Kazakhstan is the hub that we base all our investments out of. Similar to how we are doing things here, where Singapore is the hub for all our operations in Southeast Asia.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, the time I went to Central Asia more than 10 years ago, so it's
Things have changed. I'm sure things have changed.
Yeah.
So you might want to just head back there.
Uh,
Maybe next time when we go.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
Why not? Yes, maybe to find the drone opportunities there.
We actually done one.
Okay. Okay,
In drone, and the same use cases that we see here when we made drone investments 5-7 years ago. Use cases are all the same: agricultural, optimization, industrial users. Same thing. That's what we are seeing here. Just that no one or very few people are looking into startups from that region. Hence, presenting us at early stage a very big untapped opportunity.
I see. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so let me jump into deep tech questions.
Sure.
Okay. So first question is, so what key features draw investors to deep tech startups?
So what key features
yes,
do investors
attract
look out for, attract investors to? I think it really depends from investor to investor. So for example, my example earlier was that I don't look at medical or bio because I don't understand it. There are people, I'm sure, who are emerging who totally understand what is IoT or totally understand what is advanced materials and want to invest into it. And so it really depends on the investor. And just because the person is very well versed in advanced materials doesn't mean that that he will be able to secure funding from limited partners to invest into his fund so that he can invest into startups in advanced materials. So a lot of factors must come together in order for a fund to kickstart and to make investments. And once that fund is up, the advanced materials guy may see that maybe Singapore don't have that much deal flow in advanced materials, or maybe the entire deal flow for Southeast Asia is all concentrated in Singapore. So therefore, his thesis on the advanced material startup can go to Philippines, can go to Vietnam is no longer valid because everything happens in Singapore. So there are many factors like this, and we have to weigh all these factors before we decide to commit to a sector, because our commitment for a fund is easily 10 years or more. And within that 10 years, do we reasonably see returns from large startups that are on, say, advanced materials again, that can give us the kind of returns that we are looking for?
Right, okay. I think so, right. So I think the next question, probably the answer is yes. So, but the question is, does Quest VC have experience backing deep tech companies then?
So Quest Ventures, since we started, we have backed some. I'll say some, but I think the success and also some failures of them speak for how we have grown our experience in investing and not investing into deep tech over time. So one of them would be Ftix, which is a drone, similar to what Red Dot is doing, but in a different part of the value chain. So perhaps you guys can also explore a collaboration because you're all from NUS.
Yes.
And we have a tendency to somehow invest in a lot of NUS companies just because of proximity. After all, we are based in Block 71, where you are also based, right? And a lot of startups there are from NUS. This is not to say that research or startups from the other institutes of higher learning in Singapore are not good. It's just due to proximity. A second company will be Cerebra. Cerebra is a Central Asian startup using AI for early stroke detection. It is now very much domiciled in the US, tapping onto US regulatory benefits, because everyone knows that if you have a US regulator's approval, in this case FDA's approval, it travels far and they can bring their product quite far. We also have done AI investments. We have done one called Nurture AI. Unfortunately, it did not work out. It was too early, 2017, 2016, before all the AI craze went. We have now recently backed a company called Fourth AI. I cannot say much about what they're doing yet, but do keep a lookout. In terms of hardware, we have also done on e-mobility. Indonesia, in fact, the whole of Southeast Asia is the world's largest region for motorbikes. And it still amazes me why we are not solving our own problem by having some of these motorbikes, or ideally all of these motorbikes, converted to EV rather than the current ICE that they are powered on. So we have also done that as Ion Mobility.
Which is from James
also
Chen,
from NUS. I'm not deliberately picking out NUS companies just because I'm in the NUS podcast, but the reality is that a lot of them do come from NUS. And I think it speaks volumes of the benefits of being in Block 71 and also of just a long collaboration that NUS Enterprise and Quest has had since we all moved in 2011, 2010.
Yeah, by the way, so Ion Mobility also founded by James Chen, which was also one of the previously the Neoteny Labs.
Yes.
He also invested in the Bappo, and which was my previous company.
Yes. So I think you can see that the ecosystem is now we have returnees or people who are continue to be engaged in the ecosystem. So while we definitely welcome newcomers, people who are maybe retired, want to join the VC stage or VC ecosystem and so on, I think I get quite a bit of warmth in when I meet people who have been there for 10, 15 years and so on, and seen this ecosystem grown from pretty much nothing to what it is right now.
Okay. By the way, to me, it's the environment here is quite interesting because so previously the BC guy suddenly become like a startup, like entrepreneur. Then it's like
and vice versa, you know, and vice versa.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting to me, like to see it because I'm originally from Japan. So if I see that, I don't see much situation in Japan. Usually a VC is busy, and startup doesn't sell. VC size doesn't seldom become a startup to do their own journey.
VCs do fail. If VCs for whatever reason do not raise the next fund to invest into startups, or just get tired because people do get old, or just lose momentum because new sectors are emerging that they don't understand and they're not willing to learn, then I think they'll die a natural death, as they should, because startups also die a natural death if they cannot adapt to the marketplace. So when they die and they want to do a startup or they want to join back to the corporate world, they are welcome to do so. My warmth right now really comes from people like James Tan that you mentioned, who were doing incubator and now doing his own startup. And then also people like you who have done a startup, join a startup first and then now doing your own startup, right? And I'm sure you can find many examples, not just from NUS, but from the other institutions who are now do startup and now do VC, or now join the government to formulate policies for technology innovation. So I think it's a healthy ecosystem.
Okay, that's interesting. So the next question is also relating to previous question. So how does your deep tech? So you mentioned that three cases. So how does your deep tech investment compared to other areas? For example, like other areas means like e-commerce or.
Okay. So you mean how our
the percentage of, for example, portfolios or.
I understand.
Yes.
Okay. So I would say that our deep tech startups, I mentioned only three, but actually I have a whole list of them. I think maybe 7 or 8 of them were not made in a few months. They were made over the years, and they were made as the entrepreneurs in those startups found opportunities in those areas. For example, Ion Mobility, if they were to start 10 years ago rather than 4 years, 5 years ago, I think they might have been too early. And at that time, maybe 10 years ago, we wouldn't also have had the vehicle to invest in them. So these investments happen over time. And due to this very nature, deep tech startups, due to the deep and hard problems that they're solving, generally they require more time. And more time means the same people are hired for a longer time, so more money is required. You need to do more R&D to justify or to get to the next milestone and so on. And so we are expecting that they will not immediately have the kind of outsized success that you see with likes of a Carousel, which we back, or Shopback, which we back, because that general commerce, or general tech, if you may, of that era, once you get big, it's a very natural process where it feeds on itself and it just gets bigger. But on deep tech itself, you're not just trying to solve a market problem,
Mhm.
you're also trying to make sure that the technologies that you're developing really stand the test of time, really stand the test of copycatting from others, and that you are trying to manage all this while trying to attract the same talent to come in and attract VCs to believe in you that this is a long roadmap and so on. There's a lot of things to come together, and so we are aware of that, and it's a longer path to success for our deep tech startups. So I wouldn't compare them right now and say that this deep tech startup will fail because it hasn't reached certain metrics that our e-commerce startup did at that point in time and so on. It will not be an apple-to-apple comparison.
Okay. Yes. So the next question is: so overall, what's your outlook on deep tech startups, apps as investment opportunities? Maybe based on like current, I think, funding situation or current situation, or if you.
I think deep tech startups are very much concentrated in Singapore. So since in this region, Southeast Asia, they are very much concentrated in Singapore, and I merely just talk about the Singapore story, then therefore it explains our entire region already, given the fact it's concentrated here. Deep tech by itself is, let me just briefly describe it first, otherwise we can go off tangent. Deep tech itself includes AI. It definitely includes advanced materials. Of course, then it will include things like your medical and bio and so on. And within that broad scope, it also includes blockchain and new emerging technologies. Something that is deep tech today will generally not be seen as deep tech 10 years later. For example, when you were doing Burple and you were maybe building, say, a recommendation engine, and there were no large models around because data was rare.
Yes.
So for you at the time, I would easily classify recommendation engine because Alibaba was looking at it, your Tencent was looking at it, and so on. It was deep tech for the engineers who were trying to solve the problem at that point in time. You fast forward to today, 10 years later, is that really still deep tech? It has been solved. It's been there, done that. We have moved on to the next wave. And today's next wave are the blockchains and so on that I mentioned earlier. 10 years later, will blockchain still be defined deep tech? I highly doubt so. It will be just a way of life. So for this deep tech, for Singapore right now, the challenge is not on creating or understanding or even tapping onto these new technologies. I'm sure even within a small hub like NUS, when we throw a stone, we can find someone working on advanced materials. So if you can do that in NUS, you can do that in any university here. The challenge is not that we cannot find people working on it, working on solving it at the scientific level. The problem is finding people backing it at the financial level, because deep tech is constrained by the fact that it needs a long time to find success. And if you look at one of the world's most famous company, Boston Dynamics, and then of course I can throw a lot of deep tech companies at that time here, SpaceX, your Tesla. Once upon a time, you will still call Tesla a deep tech problem, but now EV is everywhere. Really still deep tech. It's difficult, of course, but maybe not so much anymore. But let's go back to Boston Dynamics. It started in 1992. It had its first product, Big Dog, in 2005. That's 13 years of development. And guess what? Big Dog wasn't even a success because the main user of it, the US military, actually rejected it because it was too big and too loud for soldiers to use. But without that initial 12, 13 years of development, they would not have been able to subsequently, from then until now, been able to roll out one product almost 1.5 to 2 years every year, every 1.5 to 2 years from there, from the base product that they had built. And now become quite ubiquitous when you look at a robotics dog, right? A quad Pedro dog or something, you just assume that it's from Boston Dynamics. The investors here and the researchers here even may not have that luxury of time to work on a problem for 12 years without showing anything. And it'll be probably even worse for them if at year 12 they show something that failed, that nobody wants to buy. So I think we have a problem here. The good thing is that there's plenty of funding available to help these researchers along in that long journey. But the funding itself is not a lot. It's not exorbitant. You can't get rich off that funding, but it helps you to stay on the path and to continue to develop. Yeah.
Okay. I think so. Usually, the 10 years is a usual like duration of like one investment.
Yes.
So how and you mentioned usually deep tech startups takes like more than for example decade, like 10 years, more than 10 years, like 15 years.
Long time.
Yes, long time. How for venture side, startup side, how should we approach to the funding issue? I would say issue.
Okay, so I'm going to go into some specifics now, and some of these are already being addressed by our venture funding ecosystem. If you know that a fund, and most VC funds here are 10-year lifetime. So if we invest in you, and not just invest in you, but when we make the first investment to the time when we fully exit, it'll be 10 years. So guess what? If I invest in you in year 3 of the fund, I'm going to want to have some exit in 7 years later for you, but 10 years for me already by then. So there is a healthy market right now emerging, put to a stop somewhat during COVID, but now it's re-emerging of secondary purchases happening where new VCs are coming in to purchase private shares from existing VCs, so that the existing VCs are able to exit within that 10 years, and then the new VCs continue to carry on. And these funds may or may not be within the same venture fund, venture manager itself. It could be new vehicles. So that's one area. I think it is very important for a CEO, especially by the time if you have a CFO, to think about this so that the VCs also, your shareholders also can realize liquidity, because the liquidity that they realize can very well be put back into yet another new fund to support your company. Who knows, maybe even by then, maybe a new company from you or something. So it is important to have this liquidity happen in the ecosystem, and it is happening. Then it's a matter of whether the startup is able to meet matrix, especially growth matrix, so that these new investors are willing to support it, knowing that there's more growth to come.
Okay. Yes. So the next question also still deep tech. So what's crucial for deep tech startups to achieve product market fit?
So I've been able to look at the research and the brief of the of this research that have been coming out from NUS through the NUS GRIP program. The NUS GRIP program, as you know, is really helping researchers to get closer to market, to commercialize it, maybe find a business partner or to take it on and to run it as a CEO while the researcher can stay on as a CTO or something equivalent. So I've been looking at this research coming out from NUS, and not just NUS, but from the other universities. The one big challenge is that a lot of this research, well, given the way that most research are written or all research are written, is very scientific and research-oriented without consideration of the market potential. And even after it passes through the hands of the tech transfer office or the industry liaison office, who is supposed to be the intermediary with the industry, the translation of the research into plain English for businessmen and so on to understand, is just not there yet. It's a bit difficult to understand how a particular technology can be used in what kind of segments. It'll be very helpful if this can be further tweaked, because it's very difficult to find 50 entrepreneurial-minded businessmen out there. It is very easy to find 50 researchers within a large institution like NUS. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 or 3 from every faculty here. But then you group them all together and say at this one cohort of NUS group, you need 50 researchers, 50 businessmen to come. It's a bit difficult. So that process can be simplified if we have easier translation. This will result in more business-minded people, whether they are old or they're young, to look at this research and say, I see some commercializable opportunity here. I think I can immediately get a small POC going with existing context that I have, with the research that you have, and pair it up. That will result, of course, POC, hopefully we hope that it results in POV, and there are funding available in NUS to do so. Once you get to POV and you're probably at TRL 4 or 5 at that point in time, that's where guys like us can come in. So Quest Ventures can come in when you're at TRL 4 and 5. Ideally, you're at 6, but at 4 and 5, we are ready to take a look and ready to invest.
See, okay, interesting. Okay, so the next question is, I think there in terms like a startup success, so there are a variety of good patterns to be successful startups, but I think also like generally like there are many bad patterns startups should avoid.
Okay.
Like for example, like shouldn't spend so much like money for example like sales before product market fit, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you think there are any like bad patterns for deep tech, particularly deep tech startups should avoid or shouldn't do?
So I earlier defined deep tech as those sectors that we look at, right? Let me now fully define it because the deep tech startup, let me now fully define it. So a deep tech startup is a business model, startup looking for a business model for this deep tech that we're researching. So a business model for cybersecurity, a business model for AI and so on, the research that's been developed. And in the process of finding that business model, I find that deep tech startups or not, it's generally wise not to overstate your accomplishments or overstate precisely what you say. If it's not even found a product market fit, let's not engage consultants or marketers or press releases to talk about your product when you're not ready. You're not ready to scale. If a POC happens and is successful, it doesn't mean that subsequent POCs will be because it was in a limited, maybe even lab-based environment. So get to a reasonable stage where probably the entire world can acknowledge that TRL 4 or 5 or even 6 will be sufficient for you to now go out to market. And then from that point onwards, double down on getting the news out there. Do you really need to have salesmen, or is it better to be done through multipliers like engaging a big MNC who can use your product and they refer to their other suppliers? This is very much dependent on the product that we are talking about. But I'll say that even within NUS, you have tons and tons of connections available to tap into.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Okay, so let me jump into drone industry.
Okay, that's your expert area. Okay.
Yes. So okay, so the first question is, so you also mentioned the name, so Avetics, so one of the drone companies in Singapore, and which also invested by Quest Ventures. So what was your thought on the drone industry post Avetics investment?
Okay, so on drones specifically, I think we came to a realization that if you control the hardware, you are going to control the software. And given that the major operators or major manufacturers of drones today are in China, primarily DJI, therefore, if you have a platform like this, a hardware platform like this, chances are you're going to be able to or want to dictate your own, what goes on it, what the software that goes onto it. So we've seen FTX and also even other players out there in the drone space, not just in Singapore, but in this region, pivot from wanting to be the dominant OS or dominant software on drones, and then realizing that there's perhaps more value added if they were to supplement it by adding on or to provide services based on the existing hardware and software. And I think FTX has found for itself a very nice niche of the market where it uses the very good capabilities of DJI and build upon it, and now provide services to the major energy majors here in Singapore. And given that 40% of the world's maritime traffic passes through Singapore, in any case, he's already servicing quite a huge segment of the market. So one thing we realize also, and this doesn't just apply to FTX, is that just because you're in Singapore, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily focusing on a very small market. Of course, Singapore is a small market. If you are talking about our consumer base here, 5 million people. But there are many MNCs whose regional headquarters are here. And if you look at our transportation advantages, 40% of maritime traffic, and also a lot of aviation traffic. If you were to be able to solve the aviation problems or maritime problem, you are actually solving a huge chunk of the world's problems from Singapore. And you don't need to be geographically based like we have asked of Carousel or Shopback, where they're based in all the different countries in Southeast Asia. For deep tech startups like FTX, for example, or even for Red Dot, you don't have to be based everywhere. You can research here and implement your business here because your market is actually here.
Okay, understand. Okay, so the next question is, so key factors influencing future drone investment for you. So what is it if there
Influencing
are
future drone investments.
yes.
Um,
So you mentioned like previously, so now because the situation is DJI, so it's dominating the industry. So I think the hardware layer is quite challenging industry, but like for example like a software or other layer, like if any interesting area for you to maybe if you consider like maybe future investment in drone industry.
So I think for hardware, we are very clear that it's dominated by current players. But so was the vehicle industry when it was dominated by Toyota and Nissan. And today you have the likes of Tesla, which is coming out quite strong in the vehicle space. So we shouldn't write off any other major major players from emerging because they could very well emerge. And with the manufacturing focus being or with US now refocusing on manufacturing, I think we can expect more products to also be developed within the US. And who knows, there could be another platform that emerge. So we're not discounting that.
I see.
Will we be in the right position, right time, and so on to tap into this new platform? I hope we will. Will we be able to translate lessons that we have learned from investing into the likes of FTX or the Central Asians, Stick, to invest into drones if a new platform were to be created? I hope so. Drones by itself is not new. It has been around for decades and decades. And I will go as far back as the space probes to define them as the original drones. What is a drone? After all, it's a remotely piloted aviation vehicle, right? So, and space probes fit that very description. So it has been around for a long time. And now we are seeing that instead of just industrial users or military users, now you come down to consumer. Would there be other kind of users? Who knows? Maybe it's up to entrepreneurs like yourself to figure out. And then hopefully we are there and you remember us and you send a pitch deck or something to us, and then we can hopefully back the next big thing.
Okay, sure thing. Okay, so the next question is also, I think it's similar with the first question. I think you also mentioned. So what's the initial vision before investing to a drone company and versus the reality after the investment, your drone focused investment. So probably after the Avetix investment. So, but I guess you also mentioned like the situation just now.
You mean how do we react to changes in the...
like does your mindset or did your thought changed even like before investment or even after investment or even after like 5 years since initial investment?
Definitely. We definitely change along the way as we learn what can be done and what cannot be done. As DJI emerged as the world's dominant hardware drone provider, for example, and also as the industry evolved. Microsoft didn't start out making keyboards. It started out making OS, right? And it has to evolve. It made more software and then realized that it can also make hardware. And then now it goes back to software, which is AI, right? So a company has to keep evolving, not just to stay alive, but also to do very, very well. And I think it'll be foolish for us as VC, as small investors, small shareholders, to force a company that we invested in 10 years ago to still do the same thing 10 years later. That will be impossible for the startup to do, to stay alive and also to do well. Even Carousel, look at it. It's not just selling textbooks now, right?
Yes.
It's got cars and so on. It's got payments. It has to evolve.
Yes. The next question also still drone question. As an investor, what excites you about the drone industry's future?
So I think for a VC, it's very easy to find financial VCs, meaning people who look at your company or entrepreneur's company and just say, give me the numbers, let me crunch it, let me maybe model it with overlay with some industry benchmarks, industry growth matrix, and then see where you fit in. And it's very easy to find financial VCs. I would like to think that we are not just financial VCs, but we are also VCs who really want to work with the founders. So one thing that I find that is very easy to know whether a VC wants to work with founders is whether VCs find fun in what they do. FUN, right? So I like to play with drones. I think it's very interesting. It's definitely a very, very, very fun product, fun game. I like to play computer games. I generally find that I'm a big user of Carousel, I'm a big user of Shopback, I'm a big user. So I have to be passionately involved or like something. So therefore, then I'll be able to find the energy and the passion to dive deeper. Is there really a market in selling secondhand textbooks? What else can you sell next time? Once you get a critical mass. And once you sell enough of something, what else can be added on? Okay, maybe payments, right? Maybe you sell bigger ticket items. So, and then you form your thesis along the way just because you yourself are so interested in doing it. So for drones, right now, when I play the small one and big ones, right, I'm like, the application for the large one is not just in transportation. It's not just in scanning crops with different IR sensors and so on to find out whether we need to fertilize some parts more and so on. It's also in transportation. And it's not just the big scale transportation that we always read about where they are testing whether you can transport things from the shore to the boats. It's not that, because I think that's still some time away. The endurance and so on is not there yet. So there are other things that can be transported. For example, in disaster areas where the need for volume is really maybe not that much because a small subset is hit. And then, but you are able to, through this one, get to hard to access areas. So this could be one area. And there are many, many applications that I think right now that are slowly but surely starting to be applied by people who find fun in playing. I'll give you yet another example of how drones are now playing critical roles in life saving. So there's a very popular video on TikTok where the drones are enabling firefighters to bring the water hoses up to levels where their ladders could never have reached. And now they are able to transport the water from of course the floor 0 to now floor much higher floors. And it resulted because the firemen were drone players themselves. They like to fool around with the games, and their bosses allow them the flexibility to play around with this and to enhance it and so on. And now they're able to do new things with it. Is it commercializable? Will you want to commercialize it because it's a huge market? I don't know. Maybe not so much immediately, but people are finding other users for it. And if you look around, I'm sure you will find something that you previously could not have imagined. And then you see it, maybe it can be done at greater scale, and you can do it.
Okay. So next question is case study, which we are currently having or facing. So because then before that, let me explain what we have been developing. So we are a drone software company, so focusing on developing drone software technologies for easy and safe drone operation. And one of the specific technology is remote control over the internet. So when you fly a drone, usually you have to be on site to fly a drone. So meaning if you want to fly at Marina Bay Sands, you have to be at Marina Bay Sands. So, but what we have been developing is you are able to remotely control over the internet. So for example, if I don't see any regulation, so I am able to fly a drone which is flying in Japan from Singapore office. So this kind of like a remote operation. So we have been developing. So, and we have been posting the information on the internet. But based on the like SEO, the internet browsing, so we constantly receive the request, oh, can we use your technology for our businesses? For example, like agriculture, like for monitoring purpose. But usually the request always come from other like distributed, for example, like from US, from other Asian country like Indonesia, Malaysia, or sometimes South America. And that's good good sign for us because we are currently kind of like getting the actual pain point, because the pain point are usually what they are saying is quite similar, the purpose. But we keep improving our product and the quality of the software. Then currently preparing for releasing the product for specifically for remote control over the internet for the drone operators. But my question is like since the request comes from many countries, but should we focus on like one country to develop the use case specifically, or versus like we should we support the request as possible as we can?
So if I understand you correctly, the use cases are fairly similar across the different countries anyway. So my rule of thumb is that you work very closely with your first customer. Of course, you already developed something. That's why they come to you. And then when they come to you, your product may have already been 80% done. And now you needed industry feedback to make it really suitable for that industry. So my rule of thumb is that the first customer that comes to you that is willing to spend time with you to improve the product to 100%, you should just go all in and make sure that it goes to 100% for that one first customer. And after that, you can probably stop listening to the second and third customer. Because if that use case is really meaningful, powerful even, other players will change or will adapt their behavior so that they can use your world-class product. Of course, that's assuming you have built a world-class 100% product, right? And they will adapt. I mean, case in point will be the iPhone and iPads that we're using right now. Our behaviors have changed because Apple made us use swiping in a certain way. So it's the same thing. Once you have industry who's willing to work with you, go all in, support that one guy or one company, and then adapt. I understand the messaging that you're talking about, and I see very interesting use cases from remotely piloting. And it's not new. Again, a concept. You have medical operations that are being done remotely also.
Yes.
So, of course, that's in a very sanitized, very controlled environment in a hospital, in a lab even. But I don't see why such an environment with the prevalence of 5G and especially with maybe even if you require edge computing available, I don't see why that will not be prevalent. The challenge then will be getting the hardware into the right place. Because while you can remotely do it from here, the hardware still needs to be there. And if they don't already have the hardware, or if they need you to send the hardware, then that might, in the case of emergencies, that will not be able to save time, of course. But if they are able to use their existing hardware and plug into some open APIs that you have, you are now enabling a worldwide ecosystem. And I think that could be an area that will be very interesting. A worldwide ecosystem enabled by protocols that you are building, or you are building upon your open messaging protocols, and that is come from Singapore, come from NUS.
Okay, interesting. Yes, as you mentioned, yes, still even though we can do it remote control, but at the moment someone has to be there to set up drone and on the switch. So, but yes,
I think the setup is definitely required. You can't just operate a surgery machine without someone setting it up there. But having said that, you can control a mouse remotely, right?
Yes.
And because a mouse is just a fixed equipment, just a USB cable or Bluetooth, and it's just 1-2 buttons, and it's just a fixed equipment. Will drones become that stage, or will autonomous, or maybe not autonomous, but will a flying vehicle become so simple that you can control? Why not? Because a car, you can really remotely control it from elsewhere. And that's because it's a fixed equipment. There's nothing to set up, no propellers to install, no fuel to add on every 15 minutes or and so on, no battery to charge. It's possible.
Let me go back to deep tech questions. So
sure.
what drove your latest deep tech investment, or maybe rejection, or you didn't take the opportunity? What was like specifying maybe team, or like a technology or market size, or that maybe the time is not right time or kind?
Okay, so you're asking from a perspective of what do we not invest in, or can it be something that we invested in then?
Yes.
Can be either.
It could be both if you
Okay,
have
maybe I
any
talk about the
examples.
positive side first, which is a
Mhm.
recent deep tech company that we invested in.
Mhm.
It's called Vulcan Augmentics. It's based in Vietnam.
Mm.
It's solving prosthetics issues.
Mm.
So Vietnam itself, market, if I remember, is 100,000 people missing a limb somewhere. Just primarily due to the wars that they've had over the years.
Mhm.
And of course, Singapore and maybe even Japan being an aging country, we will be beset with aging issues.
Mm.
And those will be like the likes of diabetes and so on, which, if not managed, will also result in loss of limbs. Even if limbs are not lost, they will lose 100% or a percentage of their functionality. They'll become weaker. Some parts can bend, some parts cannot bend, and so on. And certainly, augmented with some form of hardware, these people can regain
Mm.
hopefully 100% of the original functionality. So what Vulcan Augmentics is trying to do, starting from their base in Vietnam, is to solve this issue. And it sounds like something that a plain piece of plastic molded in decades old machinery can already solve.
Mm.
But the reality is that everybody is different.
Mm.
And so to enable it to be done at scale really requires quite a ton of learning to be incorporated, so that each prosthetic limbs they created is really customized and can bring back the functionalities that were lost.
Then the other
On the other side, companies that we don't invest in. So you got to bear in mind that we look at a lot of deals every day, only to invest in one or two a month.
Mm.
And so in the last 2 years, with the downturn in the crypto side,
Mm.
in the metaverse space also,
Mm.
we have already rejected so many that have no viable business case, no matter how well they you model forward, project forward. There just don't seem to be a business case for a certain thing that they're doing. And so we gave those a miss.
Mm.
Some things have run is already had its time in the sun, and it's really no longer popular.
Mm.
And so to do it again will be foolish. NFT being one of the very big example I can think of. You'll be quite foolish right now to start another one and expect it to be huge. I'm sure there are other use cases for NFT, but we are already stopped looking at it so
Mm.
much.
Mm.
So as I said, I think we will, as the time goes by, we'll adjust our perspective along the way.
Mm. Okay. I think I got already answer, but on average, how long do deep tech startups typically take to exit?
To exit.
Yeah.
Using general tech as an example, and general tech,
Yes.
okay, general tech will be your likes of your Burple, Carousel,
Mm.
Shopback, and so on. If you define exit as everybody is now able to publicly list or M&A and so on, none of those companies have exited,
Mm.
and it's been close to 10 years by now.
Mm.
And so we really have a very long and patient lens when we now do things like deep tech.
Mm.
If general tech in a fast-growing middle-class economy like Southeast Asia needs that length of time, COVID aside, okay, to get to a point where they can even dream about exit, then I think we have to be way more patient with deep tech.
So for founders, what advice do you have for refining products to meet market demand?
What other rights is it?
What advice do you have for refining our products, startup products?
I will go back to my that rule of thumb to have that one customer guide you along the way, because that one customer is really bringing in industry insights that from a research environment, I would say you really don't have, right? And then if someone is willing to guide you, just listen to them. And chances are their problems are very similar to the others in the industry. So after you listen to one, that's good enough. Refine it, and now you can start selling. I don't think you should customize it for every customer you go to. It's just impossible to do that. If I don't see any other software provider who does that and can get to scale. Look at any big providers right now, whether it's a Canva or Microsoft Office and so on, they just don't do that. And take it or leave it. So I'm very sure that any customer who is willing to share with you so much to let you get to 100% will definitely be able to give you a product that is sufficient for you to go out to the market already.
Okay. Right. The next question is just my personal question. So when you it's not relating to deep tech startup,
Okay.
but when you consider an investment opportunity, what do you see at first when you think of investment into a startup? But initially, what do you see? What do you check?
Okay, so there are several things, but the immediate thing is whether the founder is really in it. It it's very clear when some founders come and they are maybe working on 3 different ideas and they are hoping that you'll fund this idea, and maybe they don't want to give up the other 2 ideas, or they say, if you fund me, then I'll give up the other 2 ideas. Or even if they're just working on one, the heart is not really there. You can sense it. It's like dating. After a while, you know whether the girl or the guy is really into you or not into you, and why hold on to something or why continue to pursue something that he's not really all into. So that once we get a sense that he's really all in or she's really all in, then we'll go out and do all the different analysis that we do and due diligence that we do for a startup. So it's very important that the founder is really hardcore passionate about this. I want to just address a bit about what I said earlier about doing 2, maybe 3 things and so on. There's nothing wrong. Look at Elon Musk. He's doing 2, 3 things. He's doing more than 2, 3 things, right? And there are entrepreneurs here who are doing that. You mentioned James Chan earlier. He was doing Neoteny Labs. He was also running software outsourcing and something at some point. He was doing several things. But you can see that when you talk to him, that when he talks about EV, he is very passionate, and not only that, he is very intelligent about that particular sector. So just be really all into one, be knowledgeable about it. It can be detected by investors, and then only after that, then we'll move on to other things like your normal due diligence.
Okay. Then I think this gonna be my last question. But how do you personally define deep tech?
Oh, personally,
how do you define deep tech? Maybe as
okay, I gave you the well, I guess I hope it's a proper definition earlier. I'll give you my personal definition. So my proper definition earlier was deep tech startup will be a startup that's trying to find a business model around difficult emerging technologies. And I give you some examples like blockchain, AI, advanced materials, and so on. So that's the official definition. And my definition is that if it's something that I find it very, very difficult to understand, it's deep tech for me. And I'll go back to earlier what we talked about. Recommendation engine. It was difficult to understand how it can work and how it will work with the limited set of data. I think we have now conquered that. It's no longer deep tech for me. So the things that I'm looking at right now that are deep tech for me, I hope that one day they will no longer be deep tech for me and I find new deep tech areas to dive into.
Do you have any particular your deep tech area now currently?
I'm looking at decarbonization specifically. Of course, there's a broader umbrella called sustainability, but it's very, very broad. And sometimes being too broad helps you to look at everything, but then also makes you master of none. I want to focus on decarbonization. And even within that decarbonization scope, there's already so many things being done. And different things are being done in different parts of the world. Central Asia has a different way of tackling that compared to Southeast Asia. So that's my area right now. To me, it's still deep tech because there are so many new things that I'm learning along the way. And that's really part of why this job is so fun, because we get to learn new things.
Okay. Oh, so thank you, James. So that's all my questions today. And thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Akira. All the best.